What is up, fellas, and welcome to another episode of Rewriting History with me, the Goob. I am joined today by Gulag Kulak. He joined us previously to present about the Vinca artifacts found by Dr. Kush. It was a very interesting episode. Links in the description. I recommend you go check it out. And today he's going to be presenting about the Tumuli over on the Isle of Pines, which is... I put the number, but however many miles off the coast of Australia, it's really in the middle of the ocean there. And there's some interesting things there that Gulag's going to be presenting today. So welcome to the show, Gulag. And what have you got for us today?
Well, I've got something that archaeologists described as an archaeological nightmare. And not a lot of people know about this. It's extremely hard to find information about it on the internet. There's one very comprehensive, very good article on popular archaeology, and I recommend everyone read this. Maybe you post a link in the description later, if you haven't already. But the Tumuli are small mounds on a very remote island that have very interesting properties, very interesting things inside them. Where exactly is the Isle of Pines? It's located off the coast of Australia. It's east of Australia and north of New Zealand. There is a set of islands there called New Caledonia, which is actually a French territory. So it's part of the European Economic Area, but it's not part of the European Union. It's one of those French colonies for historical reasons.
Right. Yeah, this is really in the middle of nowhere out there.
Yep.
And do you know when people were alleged to first to arrive there?
3,000 years before present. So before, I like the before present notation, which is like present is defined as 1950, which is pretty much like saying 3,000 years ago.
Right.
It's not that exact. But if we zoom in on New Caledonia, we see this big island, which I think is called like Big Island in French. And southeast of the big island, there's this small island, and that's the Isle of Pines. So let's zoom in on that. That's the Isle of Pines. And on this little island, there are these small mounds about 3 meters tall, which I think you multiply by 3 to get the freedom units.
Right. So they're 9-10 feet tall, and then they're a bit wider, aren't they? Like 15-20 feet wide or so. So you say small, but this is a decent for how many there are. This is a lot of earth that was moved around.
That's true. The construction was not a simple task.
Yeah.
But there are similar mounds elsewhere that are usually burial mounds, and there are burial mounds on Isle of Pines as well, but these are not burial mounds. Nothing of human origin that's organic has been found in them, and instead what's inside them is a cement core, like basically made of cement or concrete. There's a circular shaft in the middle of it. There are small iron nodules, possibly man-made, possibly natural iron concretions that are in the concrete and around this concrete object. And below the ground, below this concrete shaft, which is like 3 meters tall itself, there is a giant iron object, which is like roughly cone-shaped, and it's surrounded by even more smaller iron nodules. And we don't know what's beneath even that, because nobody has dug that deep yet. There's actually very little archaeological studies of these mounds and their contents.
Yeah, only a handful of them have actually been excavated. Is that correct?
Yeah, very few of them have been excavated. But they have done some probing in the rest, like they're just sticking a long pole into the mound to see if there's concrete in the middle. And this has been verified on many mounds. It's easier than doing a full archaeological dig.
And when I looked into this myself, I did not realize the size of the iron cone beneath it. I thought this was a tiny little piece of iron, but it is not at all a tiny little piece of iron. I think you're about to show the size of it on one of your later slides, but that shocked me. I thought it was something that you could like hold in your hands, and it's certainly not.
Oh, it's about as big as as far as the height goes. It's about as tall as the concrete shaft on top of it.
Yeah.
This is what it looks like. This is the concrete. There are small iron nodules inside the concrete. We don't know if they're man-made or natural. And this one was first excavated in 1959. That's when the concrete cores were found in the first place. They were using the gravel from the mounds to construct roads on the island. And they found this concrete core and called in the archaeologists because it was very unusual. And this concrete core is about 2 meters tall, and that's basically the same height as the iron object beneath.
Crazy. Yeah. I mean, that's a big chunk of iron. It's a big chunk of concrete too, but it's a big chunk of iron.
And this is the hole in the middle of the concrete. So most likely there was something in the hole, maybe a wooden post that has rotted away or something like that.
Right.
There are more than 400 of these tumuli or mounds scattered across the island, and there doesn't seem to be any discernible pattern to where they are. There are some additional mounds on the small island there to the southeast of the Isle of Pines, and also on the big island there have been found a couple of mounds.
And have those mounds been confirmed to contain concrete, or they're just mounds as far as we know?
The ones on the big island have been found to contain concrete, and the dating was done. Some of the dating results are from the big island as well. And they also found construction materials for making the concrete next to the big mounds on the big island.
Oh, okay. What were those materials? I mean, I'm guessing like limestone and such, but what did they find?
Let me find you a source quickly. It was lime mortar mixed with silica and silica gravel on the big island.
Okay. Interesting. So the big island, I imagine, has currently and probably historically had more of a population than the Isle of Pines.
Yes, but the official population dates on the big island go back to like 3,000 years before present, and dating results from these mounds are way older.
Well, that's what I was wondering is like, could the Big Island have also had mounds just like this scattered all over it? But over the last 3,000 years, the people living there have ended up destroying them, just like the mounds in America, which used to be millions of them, and now we're down to, I don't know, a couple thousand or something. Probably more than that, but many have been lost. I wonder if a similar thing happened.
It's possible, yeah, that some of the mounds have been destroyed.
Yeah.
The excavations of the mounds didn't find any cultural artifacts. No tools, no pottery, no charcoal, nothing that looks like it could have been a tool or something man-made. They just found some construction materials near one of the mounds, and that's That's
And
really
just to
strange.
be clear, I mean, obviously the mounds are man-made. There's concrete, there's iron, there's earth mounded up, right? Obviously that's man-made. That's not just happening naturally. But these construction materials, the pile of lime mortar and silica and such, like that also is obviously, even though we're not finding any tools, even though we're not finding any signs of life whatsoever, it's like nature is not going to just collect the silica and the lime like that, I would assume.
Yeah.
So just another sign of obviously man-made action here, but zero sign of any presence of life. Very interesting.
Yep. For the dating, the dates are all over the place. They have done carbon dating, and we have dates from anywhere from 4,000 years before present to all the way back to the Younger Dryas, basically.
Right. Yeah. So 4,000 to 13,000 years.
Yeah.
Which all of that is older than 3,000 years ago.
Definitely. Yes. Right. So it's possible that some older materials were included in the mortar, but it's also possible that younger things were later found their way into these concrete cylinders. So we don't really have a good idea of what the actual age of these things is. We just know it's a lot older than the earliest recognized population event on the islands.
Right. And I would assume that even 3,000 years ago, the population that was there was not working with iron and concrete.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I put together a little table here, what the dating for these things is. There's a giant dating range for the concrete of the Tumuli. The earliest known use of mortar or concrete is in Turkey, which is like 8,450 years before present. And the earliest known iron production is around the same time as the earliest date on the concrete. So if this is like man-made iron in these mounds, then it's the oldest man-made iron on the planet.
And it's, I again want to highlight the size of this. If there is a 2-meter cone of iron under each one of these mounds, and there's still 400 or so of these mounds in existence, I mean, someone can do the math on that. Like, what's 2 meters of iron times 400? That is a lot of iron. That is not a little bit of iron. That's a lot of iron.
On the Big Island, there was once an iron mine, so they were mining iron ore there. So there is iron on the islands, but still, even if they were excavating this iron on the main island and transporting it to the Isle of Pines, that's a lot of work.
Yeah.
One thing I want to highlight is the oldest known habitation on New Caledonia is 3,000 years before present, and it's the Lapita culture, which has been there continuously ever since. But there is some controversial evidence of habitation going back maybe 5,000 years before present, and it's only based on slightly different pottery styles found in the oldest layers. It's not clear if the Lapita culture was making pottery in 2 styles, maybe one for home use, one for sale, or something like that. That's one of the hypotheses, but there's very little evidence of anyone there further back than 3,000 years.
Right.
The iron. It's one of the iron objects that we have studied beneath these concrete cylinders. It's 2.4 meters tall with a maximum diameter of 1.1 meters. That's roughly 1 cubic meter of iron, or 7 tons. That's huge. If it's natural concretion that's not like proper iron, it could be lighter, maybe somewhere in the range of 2 or 3 tons, but that's still a lot of weight to carry around, especially if you're carrying these iron concretions from the main island to the small one on boats or something.
Times it by at least 400 because that's what's still around, and who knows how many were around originally. Yeah.
One thing I've noticed that absolutely nobody has bothered to test the iron to determine if it's a natural concretion or man-made. They've done a lot of tests on the concrete. We know the exact composition of the concrete. We don't know the composition of the iron objects. Like this makes me like ask: Are the scientists afraid of the results? Like if this is actually man-made iron, it's older than any other man-made iron on the planet.
Right. This is the type of thing that archaeologists claim they're desperately searching for. And then when it's found, how the 59 is when it was first excavated. So, 70 years, and no one's bothered to test this, the exact type of thing that they're all desperately searching for, allegedly.
Yeah, it's absolutely bizarre. I mean, maybe like in 1959, you had to take the iron samples back to a laboratory in Europe. But nowadays, you can get a handheld X-ray fluorescence scanner for 10,000, and you can also rent these. So,
I've seen YouTubers walking around grocery stores with them.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean,
there's no excuse anymore.
Even you could probably rent one of these scanners, go to the Isle of Pines as a tourist, find one of these concrete cylinders, look for the little iron nodules, point the scanner at it, and you've done actual archaeology that hasn't been done like for 70 years.
Yeah.
Even though it's in plain sight.
Yeah. Well, there's more and more people who are going out and doing that exact thing. So while the archaeologists aren't going to step up and do it, I think there's decent hope that, especially, hopefully this episode raises a little bit of awareness. Someone might actually go do that.
It's very affordable citizen archaeology. I tried looking for what the size distribution of natural iron concretions is, and if this iron object that we know a lot about is a natural iron concretion, then it's on the very far end of the size distribution scale. We don't have a lot of evidence for iron concretions this size.
Right. I mean, if there was a singular iron concretion found, or perhaps natural would fit, maybe, but these are deliberately buried underneath these mounds that have these concrete structures on top of them, but also underneath the mound. It's now the idea of these being natural, it's beyond any it's ridiculous at that point,
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So here's the proposed way they constructed these things. First, they dug a hole, then they buried the big iron object with little rings of smaller iron objects around it. Then they put a post on top of it, a wooden post, either directly on the big iron object or maybe there were other iron nodules between the post and the big iron object. We don't know exactly. Then they surrounded the post with concrete and built up the concrete and the mounds step by step. And eventually the post was either removed or it rotted away. In tropical climate, that's going to happen really fast.
Right. Okay.
So the question is, who made the Tumuli? Let's first start with the hypothesis that aliens made this, and there is actually evidence for this, as surprising as it might be.
Okay.
There's this set of documents called the Majestic 12 or MJ12 documents that have been leaked from the US government. One of these documents dated 1949, so that's 10 years before the discovery of the concrete core and iron objects. This document claims to be an interview with a captured alien. And the alien claims that on the island you named the Isle of Pines in your Pacific Ocean, you will find what is left of a concrete landing platform we built there 115 of your centuries ago, which is around the time of the Younger Dryas. So it matches the carbon dating results.
Wow. And this was so April 1948 to March 1949. The Tumuli were excavated first in 1949, but do you know?
59, 10 years later.
59, right. So this was before that.
Wow. Alleged to be, but this document was leaked in the 2000s. So, and there's, as far as the believability of these documents goes, I think the general consensus among the UFO community is that some of the Majestic 12 documents are real and some are hoaxes by the government. Maybe to muddy the waters, to get the attention of the real ones, who knows. Whether this particular document is real, actually from 1949, documenting an actual interview, we don't know. I would say probably not. But if it is real, then one thing that we gotta take into account is that these interviews were not done in the way that you would nowadays do interviews with actual people, where you talk to someone, because aliens don't speak English. The way they claim to have done these kinds of interviews is that they brought in someone who claimed to have psychic powers, and the interview was done telepathically with the alien. So it's probably flavored with the knowledge and the feelings of the psychic, and it's probably not an accurate account, even if the interview happened in the way that it's claimed.
Gotcha. But I mean, if it is real, it does very specifically mention the Isle of Pines.
Yeah. And the dating matches as well, and it goes back all the way to the Younger Dryas, basically.
Right.
So another hypothesis that scientists have put forward is that birds built these mounds.
Yeah, that one is. And I don't know if you have this information off the top of your head, but I believe this theory had some legs. Like, this theory took a while to debunk. Like, this was the leading theory for quite a while, I believe.
Yeah, it was put forth in like 1985. But one of the things that I noticed when I was looking at the composition of the concrete is that there's no phosphorus in it. And bird shit is famous for having phosphorus, which makes it a good fertilizer.
Right. There's no signs of anything that would indicate a bird did it. There's no eggs. There's nothing.
Yeah. There are birds that make mounds, and they put rotting compost in there, so which heats up and incubates the eggs, so they don't have to sit on the nest all the time. And there were giant birds back in prehistory on the islands, but probably not. I mean, a bird is not going to shit out concrete.
Or iron.
Or iron, yeah. Yes. How you would get like this giant iron object through a bird's digestive system, I have no idea. And finally, maybe humans did it. but the question we need to ask is, why would humans do something like this? Like, these are not burial mounds. There are burial mounds on the same island, but the remains date to like 1900 before present, and they are distinct from the ones that contain concrete. There is no evidence of human habitation from the time of construction, especially on the Isle of Pines. So this was if it was done by humans, they went on this small island specifically to construct these things. It's probably not an art piece or a ritual piece, because the main effort that you have in there, which is all the concrete and iron, you can't see any of it. I mean, if you just want to have a mound with a wooden post upright in it, you don't need concrete and iron, you can just use dirt.
Right.
So it had to have some kind of a function, at least in the minds of the people that did the construction. Also, the builders did not use their knowledge of concrete and iron to build anything else on any of the islands. And the knowledge of building with concrete and iron, it was not exported to other islands, and it was not passed on to the current inhabitants, or the Lapita culture, or Melanesians, however you want to call them.
So whatever built these things, whether it be alien or human, or even the birds, none of those things have left any signs. So you mentioned that like they didn't build with concrete or iron anywhere else on the island. And I don't know. I mean, surely whatever built this, there had to have been something else at the time it was built, but now none of that seems to exist. I don't know how you completely, I mean, I guess a tsunami pretty effectively could wipe away a land, and that is an island in the middle of an ocean, and perhaps earth mound with a concrete core would be solid enough to withstand that. But whatever built it, it's just, yeah, all sign of it is gone. And I would love to know how that happens. And I wonder, you know, how often that's happened elsewhere. Like, we have all of these megaliths around the world. How were they built? Who built them? And a lot of people like to debate over that. But could this evidence have been wiped out in other areas as well? Is it, how is it possible that whatever built this just disappeared, that all signs of it disappeared? I don't know, but I suspect that the Tumuli are probably not the only example in the world of something like that happened. I suspect we are seeing, you know, a lot of vanishing evidence around the world.
Well, to answer the question of how we can't find any other evidence, maybe the archaeologists did not dig in the right place. Maybe the sea level change basically put the coastal community evidence underwater. There's a number of explanations that can be invoked, but it's still strange that there's nothing around the mounds. Like, if we look at like Stonehenge, we can find evidence of like human remains and stuff around the Stonehenge,
Right.
but not anywhere near these burial mounds. Maybe whoever built this was such a long time ago that the archaeologists just haven't dug this deep. Who knows? But yeah, it's very strange. It's very strange that we don't have any evidence. But I got a theory as to why they built these, and it might have been some lost civilization's attempt at weather control. And why you would want to do this, especially on the Isle of Pines, is if your main colony is on the big island, and all the storms that are affecting the big island come from the direction of Isle of Pines, you might want to find some way of dissipating the storm, redirecting the storm, lowering the energy of the storm by building something on the Isle of Pines. So maybe it was like an early engineering scientific project on the Isle of Pines.
Are you thinking like lightning rods, or?
Basically lightning rods, yes.
Yeah, that's an interesting idea. And with the way that we see the iron, like those concretions, they're just these globular chunks of iron. Even the big one, the images I've seen, it looks rather, it seems to have been melted at some time. And if you did have these mounds with iron rods that maybe originally went through the concrete and up out of the concrete, would lightning strikes over time melt that down into a what we see underneath potentially, and embed those molten chunks of iron into the concrete potentially?
It could have been simpler, like maybe if you took a long wooden post, and on one side along this post you carved a little channel, and you put like iron-rich gravel in there, and use some kind of a resin to stick it to the wood. You would basically create a primitive kind of wire, an iron wire, and you could use this as a lightning rod. And over time, the wood would have been struck with lightning, destroyed, rotted away, and all these small bits of iron embedded in the wood on the side that acted as a channel for lightning energy. These would have been scattered all over the place, and we wouldn't have any evidence that they were ever like upright in the post there.
Yeah, that's an interesting idea, and I don't have a better one. I like it. It's definitely interesting.
When I came up with this idea, I wanted to see if actually the big storms are coming from that direction. And I started looking at weather patterns, and I found something called the South Pacific Convergence Zone. Apparently, all the winds are blowing in this direction. And if you look at what the paleoclimate experts say about the South Pacific Convergence Zone and its history over time, it was located slightly further south, around 6,000 years ago, which would mean that if you're living on the big island in New Caledonia, then basically every storm is coming from the direction of the Isle of Pines.
Right.
So it would make sense in that context.
Right.
The general idea that what I have for building these lightning rods is to dissipate the power of the storms coming from that direction before they hit the big island. And they wanted to do this by causing as many lightning strikes as possible. So they set up these tall lightning rods, and they probably believe that as the storm discharges its energy in the form of lightning, the energy of the storm will decrease. It's not a totally stupid idea. It does actually work to a tiny degree. You might get a bit less lightning on the big island, but the problem is that the vast majority of the storm's energy is not stored as electric charge. It's actually in the little pressure differences and wind currents that are up in the atmosphere.
Right. I do, I'm a believer of the spicy sun. And, around the Younger Dryas, I do believe that you would have been experiencing lightning the likes of which we can't possibly imagine.
Absolutely, yeah.
And so, while we think of storms today and you go, oh yeah, it wouldn't be effective, it wouldn't do much. But if you are on an island and there's lightning that is, it's not the winds and the rain, although that's an issue as well, but like the lightning itself is a very serious threat. It's just coming in and blowing everything up and destroying everything. Creating a little island that's a lightning rod would potentially be something you would be very motivated to do 13,000 years ago when these were potentially made.
For anyone not familiar with the spicy sun idea, the way we do cloud seeding nowadays is that we fly an airplane through clouds, and we basically discharge electric charge into these clouds. Compared to what the clouds hold, it's not a lot, but even a bit more electric charge in the clouds will make them basically storm clouds, and they will all the water in the clouds will come down sooner than it would otherwise. Right. And the spicy sun theory is that as the magnetic field of the Earth goes lower, more charged particles from the sun will reach the clouds, and this will basically act as cloud seeding, causing more storms and more lightning.
Right. And it's also the same idea as the conspiracy theories tied to HARP. So HARP blasts energy into the stratosphere, and that does the same thing. So if you believe that HARP can control the weather, you also should believe in the spicy sun theory, because one is man-made and the other is just the sun, but both are acting through the same principles, and the sun obviously much more powerfully. But
yeah, basically, if you believe that modern cloud seeding, as it's done by dozens of companies around the world, actually works, then you automatically should believe in the spicy sun and in the HARP as well.
Yeah.
So I tried to reconstruct the thinking that led to these kinds of lightning rod experiments. Maybe these people observed that lightning preferably hits tall things and iron concretions. They probably had like iron concretions on the mainland. They probably saw lightning hit them. So everything else is just logical to them.
Right, because they had an iron mine there, you said, right? So there is iron.
Yeah. It's an iron-rich island.
Right, so they could observe that for sure.
Yeah. So the thinking might have been that they need a concrete cylinder to keep the lightning rods upright in a big storm. Just dirt might not be enough to survive a big storm. They need a lot of iron in the base for the lightning rod to attract lightning. That's kind of a logical extrapolation from seeing things hit iron-rich things. There could have been additional iron objects embedded into the wooden lightning rods in the same way that there are iron objects embedded into the concrete. There could have been like even a primitive wire running down into the base. Right. They would need a lot of these lightning rods, as getting hit by lightning destroys them, and they need to be replaced after every major storm. So that's a lot of work doing maintenance on them. For a while, the project might have looked like it worked. Like there's this one phenomenon called regression to the mean, and if you understand it, you're smarter than the average person. Basically, let me give you an example. Maybe there's like 10 storms every year, and that's the average. And suddenly there are like 20 storms in 1 year. So they think that we gotta build these lightning rods. They make a big effort, they build these lightning rods, then a regression to the mean happens, which means that next year maybe there's only like 5 storms. They think the lightning rods worked. They kept maintaining these, and then it regresses back to the mean, going to like 10 storms on average again. Maybe it's like 20 storms next year again. And eventually the maintenance becomes too much of a burden and the project is basically abandoned.
Right. And going back to the beginning of your presentation, you were saying that there's iron found in the dirt of the mound itself, right? So there's obviously the iron in the concrete and there's the iron underneath, but there was also like small, I think you described it as iron gravel, but like it's iron rich earth. So if that's the case, that kind of really seems to be supporting what you're saying here, is that they're building these rods. The rods are getting blown up. Iron's getting blasted out into the mound around it, and then they're reconstructing. It's also potentially melting down and acquiring at the bottom and inside the concrete.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah.
Yeah. I think you've come up with a pretty decent theory here.
I haven't seen anyone else come up with it, and it's a lot more believable than birds taking a poop.
Absolutely.
So I asked AI to make some pictures of what it might have looked like, and could have been like this: mounds, lightning rods, big storm. This is a bit too many lightning rods. They were not located so close to one another, but gives you a good idea of what it might have looked like.
Yeah.
And I think this is the image we used in the showdown thumbnail as well.
Yeah.
Finally, open questions. I think these are the most important questions about the Tumuli. Is the iron natural concretions or man-made? It's cheap and easy to test, but nobody has done it. And if it's man-made, it's the oldest man-made iron on the planet without a question. And these are like huge amounts of iron. So maybe iron working was first discovered or invented on some tiny Pacific island in the middle of nowhere. Yeah, that's a mindfuck. So how old is the concrete exactly? The dating ranges are insanely wide, and it doesn't match with the oldest known habitation. We gotta find a way to date the concrete more accurately. The question, like, is this evidence for a lost advanced civilization? I think it's evidence for someone trying to control the weather thousands of years ago. So, in terms that we can understand, maybe it's on the same scale as the world building the Large Hadron Collider right now as a scientific experiment.
Right. This would be like a massive their whole country or whatever you want to call it coming together to do this. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a huge scientific project for them. A lot of work. As for who exactly built these Tumuli, we're gonna need either more archaeological excavations on the Big Island or redate the concrete and find out maybe it's like 3,000 years old only. But the people who have continuously inhabited those islands for 3,000 years, they don't have any stories, any oral history about these mounds. They don't hold them as sacred, no knowledge of this, basically. So whoever did this was an older civilization, for sure.
And a separate one, not a continued one, it would seem.
Yeah.
So I don't know how much, what extent of archaeological work has been done on the Isle of Pines and New Caledonia, but I know that in general, just broadly speaking, the level that most people think is done is well beyond what's actually done. We usually take pretty small looks. Like, you mentioned it, Stonehenge. Like, we find things around Stonehenge, and that's because we look in the immediate vicinity of Stonehenge. We don't go, 1,000 yards to the left or to the right and start digging there. The earth is a massive, massive place, and 99.9% of it has not been excavated, So I wouldn't be surprised at all if more archaeological work was done on this island. If they did start finding evidence of older things, I'd almost be surprised if they didn't. And I don't know to what extent these islands have been excavated, but I would go ahead and say it's safe to assume that there's a lot more excavation that could still be done.
Well, to put things into perspective in that area, this is pretty close to Australia, and Australia has had continuous habitation for at least 65,000 years.
Yeah.
So plenty of opportunity for people to explore around Australia, find the little islands, follow the winds, maybe. Who knows?
And do you remember how many? I put it. I know I put it in the description of this video, but it's like 100 miles or something off the coast.
900 miles east of Australia.
900. Okay, so it's not a short journey.
For sure, but don't we have evidence of people going all the way to South America?
Yeah. No, it's a journey that certainly could have been made, but yeah, not a short one.
Yeah. So that's all I have for today.
Well, that was an excellent presentation. I do like your theory a lot because I had no idea what these. No one seems to have any idea what these are for. You have this concrete structure with a tube in it and then iron below it. It's easy to jump to. This was like a furnace, but it doesn't seem to have been that. This doesn't seem to have been for smelting iron. So yeah, what the heck is it? What could it possibly be? This is definitely the best theory I've seen put forward so far. I like it a lot.
Thanks.
Yeah.
It's the only explanation that makes any sense to me.
And again, with the spicy sun, like lightning, there would have been far more need for something like this than they have today.
Absolutely.
The lightning would have been much more intense. Yeah.
We might have a need for this in the near future. The sun is getting spicier.
In the very near future. Yeah. We're pretty lucky, really. We are truly lucky. Like the sun has been very gentle on us lately, and our magnetic field is continuing to weaken, so the situation will continue to get more precarious, but it's already weakened to the point that like just a normal solar flare, just something that isn't even all that extraordinary for the sun, if it were to point it in our direction, it could be devastating to us right now today. A Carrington event like flare could do very serious damage, and we are just purely lucky. That's really all it is we are very lucky that the sun has not decided to do that yet.
Yeah, Carrington event today with kind of magnetic field strength we have on the planet, it would be quite devastating.
Yeah. Well, Slav is asking for the link, so I think he might have a question or something. I'm going to go ahead and post it into the chat. So if you want to call in and ask Gulag a question, feel free, Slav. And let me see what the chat's been talking about. I see something about Dr. Weiss, which NAGPRA, I think people are starting to wake up slowly. I don't think we've hit a critical mass, but there's a lot more people that are aware of the issues with NAGPRA now than there was a year ago. So that's good.
One would think that the current American government and administration would be less inclined to support NAGPRA.
I'm sorry, what was that?
Like the current administration in USA, like one would think that they would be less inclined to support NAGPRA.
Absolutely, and yeah, there's definitely some hope that something can be done through them. It's just, again, it's awareness. If Trump, Elon, either of them really were to become aware of what's going on, it's a difficult thing though, because it sounds so radical, because it is so radical. I've been talking about for a while how archaeologists, for a year now, archaeologists are determined to destroy archaeology, and that sounds ridiculous. And if you ever ask any archaeologist, they'll tell you that's insane, that's ridiculous. Of course we don't want to destroy it. We're working to progress it and save it. And but it really just does come down to the same thing that so much of our modern world, our modern life has come down to, which is the politics of sane people versus these insane leftists, and not liberals, not Democrats. Like, this isn't a Democrat Republican issue. This is the woke mind virus versus, sane people issue. And so, but because archaeology is 99+% left leaning, this woke mind virus has fully infected archaeology to the point that, everyone involved is either on board with this, or they recognize that everyone around them is on board with this, and so they know better than to ever speak against it. And so this results in the entire institution of archaeology having this absolute batshit crazy leftist mindset of archaeology being evil and oppressive, and the natives and everyone else are a victim of these white supremacist old archaeologists. And the only way to fix that is to undo the damage of archaeology, and the only way to undo the damage of archaeology is to undo archaeology itself. That's a very radical message to deliver, and it's one that, someone like Trump or Elon, like, it's hard to actually get that through to them so that they understand it. But if we're able to, I think they would immediately take action against this. I think they would immediately work to preserve our history. I think this is something that they honestly would care about. This is humanity's history. This is the history of the most powerful country in the world that's actively being destroyed. And I don't think they know that. And like I said, it's gaining some momentum. We certainly haven't hit that critical mass point yet, but we're working towards it. Like, it is gaining momentum. And if we can hit that critical mass, it's very possible that it reaches them, and then it's very possible they shut this whole thing down. We're a decent ways away from that, but we're working towards it.
Maybe what's happening to archaeology now is another example of regression to the mean. What I mean by this is, if you look back in history, there has been some form of archaeology in the past as well, in the distant past. Mostly it was rulers trying to find historical evidence to secure their rule by showing that their ancestry goes down to some mythical kings or whatever. And nowadays it's more left leaning, with archaeologists trying to show that basically trying to support the ideas that some minorities have, whether it's religious or ideological, about their own past. And we only had maybe like 100 years of actual honest archaeology, which was the exception, not the rule. The rule in archaeology through history has been that it's served some other goal, and the fact that we had this brief moment of honest archaeology is it's good that we had it.
I don't know if we ever even did. Like, I look at what happened during the Renaissance and how the birth of science happened there. There, and you say, there was always archaeology. Like, one of the main themes that I find when learning about the great people of the ancient past is that they were all terribly interested in the great people of their past. They all wanted to learn about the people that came before them. And so, there's always been an interest, and there, to some degree, has always been archaeology. And I would potentially even argue that it was more honest before the Renaissance. Although I do get what you're saying, yes, there was obviously motivations, just as there are today. A lot of it treasure hunting or whatever it may be. But with the Renaissance and the birth of modern science, the religion of science that has come about, and the nail in the coffin of catastrophism, like, that used to be the main method of thinking about the world, was that the world was a chaotic place. And then, the Renaissance comes in, birth of science, and they killed catastrophism. And I see that as the beginning of like a concentrated effort to control science and deliver the religion of science to the masses rather than honestly search for things. So I don't know. I know there's been honest archaeologists, but like as an overall profession, I don't even know if we had 100 years of honest archaeology. Yeah. Well,
I think it's a lot easier in mathematics, for example. Like to actually make advancement in mathematics, you have to be like really, really honest with the mathematics. You can't like hide things there. You can't like lie to yourself there. Mathematics is kind of pure that way. But the further
I
away you
remember
get,
they tried telling us 2 + 2 = 5, but that didn't quite take hold because, yeah, like you said, mathematics is pretty black and white.
yeah, but the further away you get from mathematics, even once you get to physics, it's a lot easier to lie about things and let your ideological biases rule.
Yeah.
So
I agree.
we getting Slav in the studio, or?
I don't think so. He didn't seem to call in. So if you don't have anything else to add, this was a fantastic episode. I really enjoyed it. That is a great theory. He did just call. So I'll add him here. But yeah, I love people who I just coming up with unique thoughts. I really appreciate it. And that was a great theory. Like you said, I've not seen anyone else suggest that. And it might not be right, but it certainly fit really well. So that was a fantastic episode, fantastic presentation, fantastic theory. Thank you for that.